Greetings and welcome to the Shadow Court, everyone. JudgeSpektre here, bringing you the final part of the Unholy Trinity. 2 film reviews in 1. First, I look at Hitman 2007, starring Timothy Olyphant as Agent 47. And I remember cringing the first time I heard that Vin Diesel was going to play the Hitman in this film. But now after seeing Olyphant as Hitman, I have to wonder if Vin Diesel would have been much worse, because this guy really did a terrible job as 47. He was very badly cast for the part, 'cause he really looks or sounds anything like 47. And maybe I'm being a bit too critical here, but if you don't get the main character right, then the rest of the film isn't going to be very good, and this one really isn't. They rewrite 47's origins for no apparent reason. And that's really something you don't want to do if you're doing a video game to film adaptation, because it irritates fans. If his origins for whatever reason did not work on film, it would have been more wise to just not cover them at all and just have him be something of a enigma, have a mystique about him. That would have been preferable to what they did. And apart from that, 47 in the film bared very little resemblance to anything he was from the game. Now, once again, I don't ask for a perfect game-to-film translation, but I would have expected them to take some of the subtleties from his character from the game and incorporate them into the film, which they really didn't do. I mean, 47 doesn't sit down and have sentimental conversations with his enemies, and he certainly doesn't develop attractions to females. That's really not something he's known for. And apart from the 47 character not really living up to what I expected, the script for this film is also kind of weak. Centers around 47 assassinating somebody, but he learns that there's a witness to his handiwork, and he goes and meets the female. And I'm not going to dive too deep into the storyline, but it takes a couple of twists and turns, but it was nothing special, and the acting wasn't particularly great. I also had the feeling that this film was kind of a body count film, because 47 kills close to 40 people in this film, which is kind of funny because the game was more like move silently and kill only when necessary. But once again, looking back on it, I have to say that this is probably a tricky project to pull off. I mean, making a Hitman film is really not going to be too easy, and basically they really didn't do a great job with this. I will say that they did pull me in with the trailer and the promotional shots for this, because here's a shot of Hitman from one of the games, a promotional shot, and here's a promotional shot for the Hitman film. I have to admit, they did a really good job with the look. It's probably one of the few things that I actually liked in this film, is actually they get the look down pretty good. And another honorable mention goes to the soundtrack. That also fit very well with what we heard in the game. So they made a couple of good steps, but overall I'd have to say that it's not enough to save this film. And overall, just in general, I'd have to say that I didn't hate this film quite as much as I hated Blood Rain, but then again, I was never really a big fan of the Blood Rain series, so I guess that since I actually liked this series a bit more, I was kind of had my expectations set a bit too high, and it ended up falling short. I can only hope that in future installments, and I'm pretty sure there will be at least a couple of sequels to this film, that they will be of a higher quality and will stay truer to the source material. Bottom line, Hitman's not quite abysmal, but it's definitely not good either. It gets a 2 out of 5. Moving on now to the next film. Max Payne. Released in 2008, the film stars Mark Wahlberg as Max Payne. Now granted, I was originally going to cut this review and just cut this down to a 2-part review with Hitman and Blood Rain, because I couldn't really think of too much bad to say about Max Payne. I mean, I remember leaving the theater and being pretty disappointed in it, but now looking back on it, I realized it really wasn't that bad, so I'll keep this short. One problem I had was that while Mark Wahlberg is certainly a pretty decent actor, I didn't think that he was right for the part of Max Payne. I thought that the role required someone a bit older and with a more gritty edge, which I don't think he really had. He wasn't terrible, but I think the part would have been better if it had been someone else. And the second problem I had was that they basically abandoned the narrative style of the game in favor of a traditional style of doing the film, which was disappointing because apart from the video game's John Woo action style, the game was known for its graphic novel style depiction of the story. It's not that the story was particularly great or well done, it was just the way it was presented was visually captivating. Let me give you a very small example of that here. Check out this scene from the game.
Outside, the mercury was falling fast. It was colder than the devil's heart, raining ice pitchforks as if the heavens were ready to fall. Everyone was running for shelter like there was no tomorrow. It didn't get any better when I got to the subway. The feeling hit me like a point-blank shot straight in the face. Something was not right about this.
And granted, the whole game was pretty much done in this style, which really made it stand out among a lot of other games, which basically were, a lot of cutscenes and stuff. This was actually a very unique way of doing a game, and it caught on. There was a sequel to the game, and it also used this style and went one step further, and it was great. And overall, I'd say Max Payne was actually decent, so I can't say too much bad about it. It featured a very condensed and slightly tweaked version of the story from the game in the film, but which is okay. We don't really need much more than that. No need to try to go everything in the film, because you can't really fit a whole video game story into a 1-hour movie. So I don't really have anything bad to say about that. The story was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. All in all, Max Payne was decent, as I said earlier. It's not bad. It's definitely much better than I gave it credit for at first. So overall, Max Payne, 3 out of 5.